Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. I'm Mariah. Happy New Year's. Today's topic is ableism. This topic was suggested to me. I've seen ableism mentioned a lot on Twitter, so I thought ableism would be a good topic to cover for a video. This video is research based. For the research in this video, I read 3 articles on this topic, but I only used one article to gather information. I'll post it along with the other 2 articles in the video description box in case anyone wants to read them. And the article that I got information from was called Why We Need to Stop Using These Words or Phrases from the Harvard Business Review website. Try this thought experiment. You're sitting at your desk when your friend texts you an article about a topic you're passionate about. You read it and ask her what she thinks. To your surprise, her opinion is the opposite of your own. This obviously upsets you. Later that evening, as you explain what happened to your partner, how do you describe your friend's point of view? If you said it was stupid, insane, crazy, lame, or dumb, you are unknowingly or not participating in spreading ableistic language. You may be surprised to learn that your response is a form of discrimination. People using ableistic words and phrases every day without realizing the harm they do. Ableism is defined as discrimination or social prejudice against people with disabilities based on the belief that typical abilities are superior. They can manifest as an attitude, stereotype, or an outright offensive comment or behavior. When it comes to language, ableism often shows up as metaphors. For example, my boyfriend is emotionally crippled, jokes, that comedian is hysterical, or euphemisms. He is differently abled in conversation. As a journalist with a background in media studies, I spent a lot of time thinking about language and the words we choose to express ourselves. Our words and the reasons why we choose them reflect times we live in. Just like some historically racist, sexist, and derogatory terms have been retired, so have a handful of ableistic slurs that were used to dehumanize, stigmatize, and institutionalize people in the past. At the same time, too many people continue to casually spew ableistic language to ridicule, criticize, and dismiss others. My intention is not to shame anyone, it is to help more people understand how to identify and stop using words and phrases that reinforce ableism. I've reached out to several disability rights advocates for their insight. Here's what I learned. Ableism is bigger than language. Language is a tool we use to make sense of our feelings and environment. We're verbally describing things, experience, and people around us. We are also assigning value to them, and that value impacts how we interact with each other. Ableistic language largely influences us in 3 ways. 1. It reveals our unconscious bias. Lydia X.Z. Brown, a disabilities justice advocate, told me that our attitudes toward disability show up in the language we use. If we believe people with mental illness should not be in our workplace, life, family, or neighborhood, that is easier to rationalize using ableistic words, Brown said. If you think only crazy people do that, I don't do that, so it's okay for me to say. But when people say these things, they send a signal to people with psychosocial disabilities that we are not welcome. Of course, Brown noted that language is just one way ableism shows up. But by removing ableism from your vocabulary, you do not remove ableism from your surroundings. Ableism can be blatant, especially in work and school environments. It can be the lack of accessible infrastructure or something more insidious like performance evaluations based on what are typically considered productive and or appropriate behaviors. Shane Neumeier, a lawyer and activist, added, unfortunately, people may not realize that doodling during a meeting or class may be your way of paying attention, especially if you're someone with an invisible disability. They may just think that it's an abnormal behavior for that space. Number 2, it makes us internalize harmful bias about disabilities. If you treat a disability as a joke, metaphor, or euphemism, you are causing harm in a couple of ways. First, you are spreading the idea that it is acceptable to dehumanize and stigmatize someone with a disability. Depending on your circle or friend group, you could even enabling others to do so. Second, a disabled person may end up internalizing those tropes. The first time someone teases you or someone like you, even if it's not directed at you, it's a little drop in the bucket. It's like a poke, Neumeier said. But when you are put down 100 times over and over again, you start feeling disrespected, and it becomes hard to be around your perpetrators, especially in the work environment. If there's an imbalanced power dynamic and your perpetrator is your boss, it can be difficult. Neumeier also pointed out that writing off a slur or universally unaccepted expression like the R word or the M word may be easier for a disabled person than constantly confronting microaggressions. If a person is facing discrimination, doesn't have a support system, they may start believing something is wrong with them, and that's dangerous. Number 3, it stigmatizes already marginalized people. I'm sorry if I say her name wrong first. I think her name is Alyssa Fernandez, a mental health and disability activist, told me that using words that are ableistic can distract attention from the point you're trying to make and normalize the idea that disability equate to insult. Fernandez explains that if you say Trump is such a psycho or weirdo for his stance on immigration, you end up focusing on those words instead of addressing the real issue, what it is you don't like about the immigration policy. Immigration policy. If you want to critique the administration's policy or anything on that matter, Fernandez advises that you talk about the reasons you agree or disagree with it. When you attack a person's physical or mental abilities in place of actually expressing an opinion or idea, you further stigmatize people with disabilities, says Fernandez. Make a conscious effort to improve your vocabulary. Using ableistic language does not make you a bad person, but if you have the privilege to change your vocabulary for the better, then why not try? I asked my interviewers for a few basic tips. This was their advice. Number 1, acknowledge the disability around you. More than 1 billion people worldwide, about 15% of the population, have some type of disability. People with disabilities make up a quarter of the U.S. population. Professor Beth Haller teaches disability and media studies at the University of Towson. She told me that the more conscious we become of the disability around us, the less we are likely to stigmatize it as something to be fixed and look at it as something that it is. Usually people exist on two ends. People either feel bad for you if you are disabled or self-aggrandize by feeling lucky for the life they live without a disability, she explains. Both of these things are unhelpful. Haller said that, as a world, we need to get out of the mindset that a disabled person has less than the rest of us. That's where the discrimination begins. Pro tip. Don't try to fix disability. Instead, fix oppression. Number 2, learn. Education's where you start, Fernandez says. It's not just It's not that people don't stop and think about the impact their words have on others. It's just that language is very deeply ingrained. It reflects our families, friends, cultures, and identity. According to Fernandez, becoming aware of our own bias, many of which we picked up from people we've met, the experience we've had, and the media we've consumed throughout our lives, is the first step to educating ourselves. Another way to become more aware of our own bias is to listen more than we talk. Newmeyer told me to think of listening as a better way of building strong relationships at work and beyond. Look at every reaction you have as a way to bond with others rather than just a clash of ideas. Otherwise, we are all going to feel isolated. Finally, Brown added that it's important for everyone to use the resources put out by disabled people. Look at articles, books, videos, podcasts, and other works by disabled writers and activists. Use the tools to learn about the way discrimination or ableism works. Doing so will help you recognize when it's happening in real life, whether it's coming from you or someone else. Pro tip: educate yourself and do not rely on others to teach you. Number 3, do not make assumptions about someone's identity. Linguistic rules are evolving. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, during the AIDS epidemic, organizations began to move away from the words handicapped and embraced what is referred to as person-first language, according to Haller. Instead of defining people by their disabilities, the movement sought to focus on the fact that people with disabilities are first and foremost just people. An example of this would be saying a person with a disability rather than a disabled person. This was the linguistic rule for some time. Then, in the early 90s, other disabled communities like the National Federation of the Blind and the Deaf community mobilized that identity rule, so disability could be recognized as an identity and not just as a medical category. For instance, some individuals may prefer deaf capitalized instead of people who are deaf or people with loss of hearing. The history behind our identities and how we name them is complex. Today, the best strategy is just to ask people how they want to be addressed, Haller said. Everyone I interviewed echoed this sentiment. Clarifying questions about identity shows respect. Pro tip: golden rule is, when you're unsure of someone's identity, just ask. Number 4, when you make a mistake, genuinely apologize. When someone tells you something is disrespectful, you don't have to understand why they are hurt, just that they are, said Brown. I love cooking for friends, but if someone says they did not like a dish I made, then I'm not going to force them to eat it. I don't have to understand or argue or even agree with them, but if I have a choice, why would I make my friend a dish they don't like? Brown cautions to be aware of your reaction if someone's calling you out. Getting defensive may be a normal reaction, but the last thing you want to do is make someone's pain about you, even if you had good intentions. Instead, genuinely check yourself, say you're sorry, and do better in the future. Pro tip: This isn't about your opinions. It's about how the other person feels. My big takeaway from these conversations is that pain and isolation that accompanies discrimination and prejudice run much deeper than the ableistic words many of us were taught as kids. These words hurt people, and that hurt is valid. The upside is that history shows us that language and communication evolves. This means that we have a lot of room to create vocabularies that are more empowering and inclusive, ones that address historical injustices and makes everyone feel welcome. Language is not meant to alienate us. It is meant to help us understand one another. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm sorry it was a long video, but I think all the information that I shared is important. I am always open to any suggestions you have for any future video topics. Please let me know what they are in the comment section below and on my Twitter page at @BurleyMariah, and I can spell it for you at BurleyMariah. My next video will be on the benefits that the state government offers the disabled. This topic was suggested to me, even though I had thought I covered it, but I guess I didn't. I'm sorry for that. I hope everyone's continuing to stay safe. I'll post my notes in the comment section for anyone who needs them. Please like, share, and subscribe if you want to and found this video to be helpful. Feel free to share this video with anyone you think might need it. If you want to be notified for when I do any live streams or upload any new content, you want to select the bell icon. And under the bell icon, you want to select the all option. Thank you guys for watching. I love you guys. Bye!